Ask Me Anything by Redical. I am a survivor of medical experiments performed on twin children at Auschwitz who forgave the Nazis. Ask me anything. When I was 10 years old, my family and I were taken to Auschwitz. My twin sister Miriam and I were separated from my mother, father, and 2 older sisters. We never saw any of them again. We became part of a group of twin children used in medical and genetic experiments under the direction of Nazi Dr. Joseph Mengele. I became gravely ill. At which point Mengele told me, too bad, you only have 2 weeks to live. I proved him wrong. I survived. In 1993, I met a Nazi doctor named Hans Munch. He signed a document testifying to the existence of the gas chambers. I decided to forgive him. In my name alone. Then I decided to forgive all the Nazis for what they did to me. It didn't mean I would forget the past, or that I was condoning what they did. It meant that I was finally free from the baggage of victimhood. I encourage all victims of trauma and violence to consider the idea of forgiveness, not because the perpetrators deserve it, but because the victims deserve it. You came to my middle school when I was young and my video productions class did a project on candles. I just wanted to say I've not forgotten what you taught us. Even though you were only a guest in our class for a short time. You taught me more about the nature of humanity, both good and bad, than I have ever learned from anyone else. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say a heartfelt thanks. You are welcome. It's my pleasure. I am glad it helped you. This might be too much. But what were some of the experiments? It's not too much. Just too long to type. The most dangerous of the experiments were being injected with germs, diseases, and drugs. I was injected with one of those diseases and I was supposed to die. I beat the odds and I survived. But I know that from the 1,500 sets of twins, only 200 individuals survived. The blood drawing was painful, but not as dangerous. The other experiments, we had to stand or sit naked for up to 8 hours a day. It was so demeaning that even in Auschwitz I couldn't cope with it. The only way I could cope was by blocking it out of my mind. So I have very few memories of those long hours. What they were studying was how identical twins were alike and how they were different, and how well we fit the design of an Aryan race. They would measure and compare every part of us. The observation labs were 3 days a week between 6-8 hours. The injections and blood taking were 3 days. Alternate days. The only day we had off was Sunday. And that was the way we knew it was Sunday. Hello, Eva. I went with you on the trip to Poland and Auschwitz in 2012 and I just want to restate how amazing I think you are. I have continued to keep in contact with everybody at Candles and I think the programs you hold are just fantastic. For everyone reading this, I want to let you know that Eva Kaur is truly one of the kindest, sweetest, and funniest people I've ever met. She's been through so much and she still wakes up in a good mood and just wants to educate people. She's such an inspiration. Here are a few links you might enjoy. Eva dancing the horror in front of a gas chamber in Auschwitz to celebrate another year of freedom from that place. Our 2012 group. Eva and I in front of her picture at the Auschwitz Museum. Notorious sign. Eva looking fabulous. : Thank you for doing this Ask Me Anything. Eva. Thank you. You are a wonderful Redditor and friend to me and to Candles. Thank you so much for doing this. My question is, what was the first thing you did when you were free and healthy? I am asked the question, when did my life become normal? Which is kind of what you are trying to ask. Since I wasn't free and healthy until I arrived in Israel, I lived in communist Romania immediately after the war. The first thing I did was learn Israeli dances and learn to sing. So singing and dancing to me is always an expression of joy. That is the reason why I always want to dance the horror with people who are sad. To be 16 and to enjoy jumping around with others. Dancing and singing made me realize I no longer had to worry. Also, living in Israel and not having to worry that I wouldn't be harmed just because I was Jewish was tremendously helpful. Help people who have been damaged by mistreatment to learn to like who they are. That is what we should tell experts. If we do not like who we are, that is what we will reflect to the world. To be in Israel in that agricultural school with other children who had been damaged in the Holocaust. I learned to like myself and like them. I learned to say I love you in 10 languages. That was kind of fun. And everything I did in that school for 10 years was mostly fun. I learned Hebrew. I could milk 12 cows. And I could walk with my friends and pick oranges from the trees and eat them. It was a carefree life, and the fact that I learned to like who I was, and I was Jewish. So I had to like being Jewish. Maybe that is what psychologists should concentrate on. Hi Eva. Thank you so much for doing this Ask Me Anything. This may be an odd question. But did you see glimpses of humanity from any of your captors? Any kind gestures? Thanks Eva for your answer. My grandmother also survived over a year in Auschwitz, and I thought I would add a little to this. She took part in the death march just prior to being liberated. During the death march, anyone who stopped walking was supposed to be shot. After marching for what seemed like forever while dealing with severe undernourishment, she decided that she had endured enough and decided to get out of line. Stop marching and give up. Rather than shooting her, an older Nazi guard came to her, told her to get up and continue marching. He told her something along the lines of, "I won't let you give up. You are young and you have so much life ahead of you." It was because of that man that my grandmother survived and ultimately was rescued. This is more fun than a barrel of monkeys. After reading so many factual and brutally honest responses you have shared with us, this one made me laugh out loud. I am both sorry and thankful. You are a wonderful woman that is an example to anyone who feels they've been done an injustice. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. You were 10 years old at the time. At what age did you fully understand the experience you've been through? I understood the experience that I was between life and death and that I had to do what I had to do in order to survive. I understood that all along. What happened in the after effects took until my twin sister died in 1993. To realize these experiments 48 years later, that killed my sister. They left a tremendously physically damaged individuals. In many cases. And I am sad about it. The survivors are very emotionally damaged because they are still, emotionally, victims. That is my passion, teaching victims how to heal themselves. I cannot heal them. But each person can heal himself or herself. The best thing in my life right now is realizing that through my efforts and talking to people, I can touch some people's lives. And what else can any of us hope for but to help people? I realize forgiveness is controversial. But for victims to realize they do not need anyone's permission to forgive and that it can help them feel better, it is tremendously important to me. And if Reddit helps people realize that more than anything I have ever done before, then thank you Reddit. Did any Nazi personnel express any reservation as to the experiments being done on you? Did anyone at all express guilt or doubt as to what was going on? Did you ever receive kindness from anybody during this time? I don't know that there was time for people to feel guilty or for me to know how they felt. There was not that much interaction between us and the administrators of the experiments. It moved fast and matter of fact. I have not had the opportunity to ever talk to any of the inmates who were forced to administer them. We were always under Nazi guard. And there was not much interaction at my age, 10 years old. Maybe some of the older twins. But I don't know. All we wanted to do was survive the experiment. Get it over with. And go on. Have you ever been confronted by any Holocaust deniers? How did you handle the experience, people? Thank you for sharing your story. Yes. I have been confronted by deniers. Revisionists. And I have one simple response for them. I know I had a mother and father. And I never saw them again after Auschwitz. Nor my older sisters. So if you know so much, tell me what happened to my family. If my story isn't true, I guess you will agree with me and will repeat after me that you want your family to have the same destiny as mine did. If you don't believe my story about how my family ended up, I want you to say out loud that you wish the same thing for my family that happened to your family. And they are usually silent. What's your fondest memory before the war? What about after the war? Before the war, we loved to go in our big orchard, the 4 girls and cousins, climb all the trees, pick fruit, eat, have plays in the big orchard. What I remember as a child was that we would improvise the plays. I thought if I made anyone laugh. I made someone laugh. If I could impress someone to laugh. That made me happy. Also, my mother had unbelievable wisdom in raising 4 girls who learned to be little farmers in competition with each other. And we were also competing every morning in the summer who would be the best helper. And that child would be named Helper of the Day. What psychology? I adored my mother, and her wonderful holiday tables should have won any Good Housekeeping award. Actually, she could have competed with Martha Stewart. After the war. I think that right after the war there were a lot of problems. One thing, Miriam and I would always dress up alike. We would go to Cluj, in Romania, and visit the botanical garden. We were 14, 15, or 16 years old, and we wanted to attract the attention of the boys. And we did, and that was fun. The other thing we liked was to fool the teachers in class. And that was fun because if we were not prepared with our homework, the teacher would look at one of us and ask for the answer. We would both stand up to answer the question. And she wouldn't know who was who. She would be embarrassed and sit down. Naughty me. Mischievous. Definitely. When we were in Israel, Miriam went out with a guy who did not take no for an answer. She was very upset when she got home. I said, call him back and tell him you will go with him to the movies. And I will go in your place. I wore the same outfit she did. I didn't want to worry about if I would recognize him. So I got there early. He approached me and said he had tickets. I said, you know, my roommate is not home tonight. I just wanted to mention that to you. I knew what would happen. He said, well, the movie isn't that good. Let's go visit your apartment. Miriam was at the apartment waiting for us. When he walked in, I think for about 10 minutes he was in shock. Kept looking at me. Then Miriam. Me. Then Miriam. Finally we said, when somebody tells you no, you have to be a gentleman enough to accept it. I hope you have learned your lesson. We could do things like that as twins that other people cannot do. I got this card today for all the Redditors. Wishing everyone to cheer up and have a happy Valentine's Day. The flowers are blooming and spring will come. Sorry I forgot to include a banana for scale. Imgur.com link. You are brilliant. I cannot emphasize enough how much I respect you and your bravery. You stood up under the most terrible of times and kept yourself together in the face of unspeakable horrors. And to forgive your tormentors shows a greater and brighter perspective on life than most. I don't think I could have done it. I am a 10th grade English teacher. And every year we read Elie Wiesel's Night. In fact, we will be starting it soon. These are 15 and 16-year-old children who have for the most part never traveled more than 100 miles from home. They are sheltered and naive. But like all teenagers they think they have it all figured out. If you could speak to them and share with them just one piece of wisdom, what would you most want them to know? Growing up is very hard. Even in United States. Therefore, I tell them what I did in Auschwitz. I never gave up on life and survival. So if they never give up on themselves and their dreams, they can accomplish anything. For you. Maybe for 1 year. You can have them read Surviving the Angel of Death and ask your students what they thought. They can read the book and then Skype with me to ask me questions. It will make it a lot more real for them. I am a real person. And you can Skype with me. It is wonderful, doesn't cost too much money. I live in Poland and I think your thoughts on forgiveness could be of great use to the people of this country. It seems that we, as Poles, are happy to be the victim rather than use the lessons learned in the past to influence the future. One particular political party still hold great suspicion of the Russians, and many people in general do not have a tolerance for Germans. If you could give me one piece of advice on how to speak to someone not willing to forgive, how do I help them move on? Ask them. Are you happy hating this group or that group? Does it make you feel good that you can hate? Would you like to become friends with them? Are you the strong person who is willing to take the first step? Then if so, think about forgiving the past because it has no importance to the present or future unless you hold on to it. If you want to make friends in the world, become that friend. Become the person you want others to be. Thank you for doing this Ask Me Anything. I am myself a twin and I visited Auschwitz a few years ago. When I walked through the exhibit that showed pictures of the twin experiments, Mental, did it really hit my. I could only imagine the fear and sorrow of that happening to me or my twin brother. What I would like to ask is simply 1. What happened to you and your sister? When did you realize you were free? 2. How was it returning to Auschwitz? What went off your head? Oh my goodness, lots of questions. The story. I will describe it in a very simple sentence. We were huddled in our filthy bunks, crawling with lice and rats. We were starved for food. We were starved for human kindness. And we were starved for the love of the mother and father we once had. We had no rights. We knew we had to submit to the medical experiments in order to live. We had one major determination. To live one more day. How was it returning to Auschwitz? Particularly for me. It was like returning to a place that for 40 years I wondered at times if it was real or was it a figment of my imagination? And to realize it was real. That what I remembered was correct. And that I actually recognized many of the buildings. Removed that big monstrosity from my imagination. And also the fact that I could go into the camp and walk out and nobody shot at me. That feeling of being free was very, very reassuring. I realized that I have beaten the Nazis. I survived in spite of what they did to me. It's a feeling of triumph. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.